And every morning when I come out here and I look around, this restoration turned out to be like a dream come true. But also this little work that we're doing on the RD, as I see, and the parts are over there all dried up, I've already looked at them. Every little thing I do to upgrade these bikes, it brings joy to my heart. I just like seeing older bikes that are restored. This one's 11 years old, that one's 43, 31, 34, whatever they are. I just love the fact that we've been able to keep them as riders, not as show bikes, not as put them up on a shelf and hang them up or something, but we ride them and enjoy them. And that's what they're made to do, is to ride and to enjoy. Now this is the kind of thing that's pretty funny. I was thinking last night, because I want to get this bike up off the ground, I was thinking I'd bring it out, jack it up by the come along, but then it gets in the way of everything. And I'm looking and looking, and all of a sudden I realize, what the hell am I thinking? Bike's got a center stand. I'll just put it up on the center stand. See, when you get old, this is the problem. Problem is, you can't chew gum and skip rope or parachute off the Empire State Building. You get confused. The bike has a center stand, so this will be, and I won't even start this project till I finish up the RD, but today I want to see how that paint is dried out and get the RD put back together if we have time. You never know how much time we're going to have. And then we'll start working on this project. Now the project would be, if I can see, you never know how the time is going to play out. It's the time. I wanted to put these wheels in black with the red-orange stripe, and put new tires on these wheels. And then one day in the middle of the summer, when you don't want to waste a whole day doing all this stuff, you can just take the GS and flip the wheels. So that would be a nice goal, and it's only because we have all this time. We got the other project done probably a month ahead of time, and it went smoothly. We didn't run into any atomic wars or anything, but I already bought out a bucket to put the parts in that I'm going to be taking off of this bike, so I'm kind of hoping I can get the RD project done in the next day or so. And I just always have to emphasize how much a set of wheels changes the whole bike to me. The paintwork, always the number one thing, but the wheels, it just changes the whole look of a bike. And sometimes you don't realize how dramatic of a change that is. And obviously, it's all in the eye of the beholder. Some people don't care. They leave the wheels flat black and don't wipe them off. And don't lube the chain and whatever. But, you know, that's not my thing. My thing is, now with the RD, we're going to get busy today. I'm going to get a hairdryer out here when I assemble this. Warm up the wires. I've already checked that every one that tentatively has a little piece of tape on it. Because again, this is 43 years old, and I want to have this bike on the day of my death. So overnight, the paint is dried up beautifully. Yesterday, we used a great painting day. Today, it's supposed to rain all day. Everything looks like it dried up beautifully. I think this will be a piece of cake to buff it out. Now, I'm going to use this as an opportunity, because this paint's only 24 hours old, and to see if the 8065 will buff this out when it's 1 day old. I know in the past when I've tried to do this the next day, not been totally happy, but it's doable. It's just a little extra work, but what that's going to allow me to do is get this project finished. I've already got the screws all polished up and everything. Get this project finished, get it all back installed on the RD, clear the deck out, and then start on the GS wheels. So all the battery chargers are flipped. I've got to get myself in there and get a cup of coffee, and I'll be ready to start the day's work. Well, Mother Nature is in action here. We've already got buds on the wisteria, and oh my God, spring is in the air. The pond is starting to clear up. The waterfalls are bubbling along. Karen's itching to get some plants if the plant stores ever open up again. But having buds on the wisteria, that's going to, about 2 weeks from now, that's going to be purple, like a big purple umbrella over the pond. Something we look forward to every year here, and we love to share it with our friends. Yeah, it's still cold out there in the morning, but it warms up in the afternoon. Yesterday I was even in a t-shirt, so warm weather is coming. So the first thing I want to see, and this will be really an experiment more than anything else, I'll get this off. And if I do one part and it doesn't really buff up quickly or the way I expect, it'll be very easy. I'll put it up by a heating vent, let it sit overnight, and go work on a GS. Oh, it's a win-win for me. Now, we bought this Rhino wet off of Amazon not that long ago, 2000 grit. We're going to use some today. We got some soapy water, and the test is going to be to see if that paint is hard after basically 24 hours. We won't know until I do the test. Now, it's always been something of discussion among people that do custom painting of all kinds, and I've heard the answer from a lot of people that I really respect their talent and their ability, and I've heard totally different answers. Now, one of the answers is with modern urethane paint, of which this is one of the things. And I don't know if this is different when you paint a car, or when you paint something else, you put a different amount of paint on. I put a way more than you would put if you were painting a car. So maybe that affects my thing, that the paint always seems to need that extra day of drying. But I'm being gentle. I look at the sandpaper and see if there's any chance I have like what looks to be like chewing gum there. And if I have chewing gum, basically I'm done for the day. I put it up by the heating vent for another day. And because it's still pretty chilly outside, well, the heat is still on. So now I can feel this is like a little sticky. I'm not sure, but I want to do one part just to see if I can do it. Was one of the things I don't like to have is two jobs in the shop at the same time. And I'd rather have one and get finished and then start another one. So I really don't want to pull those wheels off unless we don't have any other choices here. And I want to have these parts buffed, of course, before I put them back on. Always easier to do it before rather than when it's on the bike. It gets to be a lot more work. So let's see if I can show this. Actually, it looks like it's okay. But the test will be when we put the 8065 on it. Let's see if I can show this. You got the shiny parts and the dull parts. I always do like to show in real time how long that would take. So without making a big deal of it, I'm going to do this whole part and then get ready to do a buffing test. Okay, so we have our test parts sanded and we're ready to give this a shot with the 8065. And this is the polish that we've had really good luck with. The Meguiar's is good too, but I kind of favor this. I have both of them, and I know this is difficult to buy, but because it's made in Germany, but we get it locally from Gavin's. So a couple of the things with the 8065, I always like to get a new pad on here. A couple of bucks, these aren't worth even. And I know you can wash them, and I know you can use them over, and use them on your car or on your wheelbarrow or something. For my motorcycles, I prefer having a new pad. And it's not that expensive. And it really does, in a lot of ways, it just makes the work of doing this a lot more enjoyable. Now, I always load the pad up, even though I've seen other people that do it different ways. And I always put some material on the part itself. Most important around the edge here, get that material on. Because now I don't know that this paint is going to buff up exactly the way I expect. But again, I like to, look at that. I wouldn't edit that out of the video. You can't make that up. This is the kind of stuff I like to add to my knowledge base, because the knowledge you get, if you see it firsthand, it's not like you learn it on the internet. Then you really do know what you're doing. Now I like to always do one in real time, just so I can see if I'm going in the right direction. And actually, to my chagrin here, it looks like that paint is buffing up really well. So I have done the test in real time, and I The rest of it is going to be pretty self-explanatory. Is just, it looks like we're going to be able to do this today, which I was kind of not expecting, but you learn something every day, and that's the beauty of YouTube, is you can share it right away, so other people, they have shared what you've learned the hard way. So I have to admit, and this did not go badly, and even though, well, you know, that it isn't really a good test because it wasn't really up below freezing last night. So what has happened in the past is I put parts out, and any of the 2 parts always sit in the garage overnight, and sometimes the second day, where sometimes it's below freezing. Well, when it's not below freezing, and obviously if you lived in Arizona or something, you wouldn't even have this problem. But anyway, as I wipe this off and I'm looking, I think that came out pretty good. So what it's led me to believe is I've tried to figure out what I want to do with the rest of the day. I want to get the rest of these parts buffed now, because my plan was if these needed an extra day up by the heating vent or 2, I'd work on a Suzuki. Well, now I can do things the way I want to do. I like to do one project at a time. I really don't like having 2 things going on at the same time, because I don't even know if I have a kickstand on the bike or a center stand. So, yeah, you figure the rest out. Yeah, that shine really did come out pretty good. So, all right, well, we got other parts to do, and I want to do, well, I may as well do them in sequence. Do the other little part, the headlight, and then the last thing, the mirrors. That's probably going to be a full day by the time I get done with everything. But again, the whole idea is I don't want to compromise. I want this to be as good as I can make it. Keeping these old motorcycles alive is one of the joys of my life. Now, as always happens, the second part usually goes just a little quicker, but knowing that paint, if it sat out in this is important information for me, sat out in a, so let's say a 40-degree garage, 35 degrees even, instead of below freezing, then we probably can get away with buffing it the day after, the next day, 24 hours later. But put it in a garage below freezing, so maybe that's really the lesson, and that's the lesson worth sharing. Well, as we expect, the second part always goes just a little faster. But our little Harbor Freight palm sander, buffer, whatever you want to call it there, we're getting our money's worth out of it today. But I have a feeling that these parts wouldn't be a big deal if we had to do them by hand. They're not that difficult to do, and they're not that difficult to hold. One of the things when you're having parts that are hard to hold, these are relatively easy. But the finish speaks for itself. That's all I can say. And the second one did go quite a bit faster than the first one. So I guess there's a lesson here, and the lesson is, if it's 40 degrees or above, I guess you can buff this out the next day with 80-65. But again, I'm just old school enough that nothing bad would happen if I let this dry another day up by a heating vent, that's for sure. But it is going faster than I thought it would. Okay, the next part, I got to take the pliers off. The next part, the headlight had, geez, no issues at all. So this should actually sand out beautifully, and because there's no real hard spots to do, this is going to go, I think, just as quick as the instruments. This part should go relatively quickly. It's all nice smooth surfaces. And if I remember right in the past, the mirrors were a little bit, there's a lot of corners and edges I have to be careful of, but a part like this should be relatively quick to do. You just don't want to go through the paint on the edges if possible. And when these parts are buffed out, wow, this is going to be such a nice little upgrade on that. And it's 43 years old. Wow, I hope I live to 43. In dog years, this thing is 1,000 years old. All right, those parts just came out great. I'm not upset with that at all. And I think we learned something today, and obviously we're going to try to pass it on. Now the next part of this job is going to be the mirrors. Now the mirrors, of course, are the most time consuming of anything here. And I always look at, and really looking at the paint carefully here, because if we had any runs or any giant fish eyes or anything had to be taken care of, obviously this is when we want to do it. Now, I also leave the tape in and the tape on, and of course the tape covering the glass while I'm doing the buffing out. I don't want to have any chance that I'm going to scratch that glass. That glass is very vulnerable, as I've said before. So the first thing, of course, I'll get the 2000 grit paper and get as much of this, the flat parts, sanded, being very careful not to go through on the high spots or on the edges. And then from that point on, it's time to buff. Anytime I'm working on any job like this, I always think it always seems to take longer than you thought it would. But in the end, when it's done and it's sitting out there, and or you just take the bike out for a ride and you get to see your handiwork out in the bright sun of a summer day, well, then you forget a day like today that you're working and buffing and polishing, and the weather's not really that conducive to doing anything except being inside. So we have made the most over the course of this winter and over the course of the restoration of the 650. We have made exceptional good use of days that were paintable, we got to paint. Days that were not paintable, we got other stuff done. And I think that's one of the reasons we got done with this project basically a month and a half before I thought we would. And I'm not complaining about it. I'm just, well, I'm just happy that the way we did it with sequencing and leapfrogging and all the little tricks we try to use sunny days for painting and rainy days for polishing, and I don't know. I know in the end, the job got done. And these are going to sand right out. It's just going to be a question of some time to do it. And, you know, right now, this would be a good time to take a coffee break, because I'm getting, after a while, you know, not exactly Arnold Schwarzenegger anymore, but then neither is Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah, the old arm gets tired after a while, that's for sure. And we'll come back there as soon as we have a break. Working on the mirrors, of course, you got to be really careful about these corners. There's a lot of angles and edges, and again, the most important thing is not to scratch the glass, because I really have never found a way to replace that glass. I have plenty of extra mirrors, but to try to get the glass out, and I'm sure you could cut it with a Dremel tool or something, but it would be nice if you could replace the glass. But if somebody knows how to do it, yeah, I'll be willing to learn. Anyway, we're coming up on having this ready to buff. I am ready to buff. This time of day, the coffee always goes down beautifully. Goes down beautifully all the time. What can I say? Without coffee, holy mackerel. Now, it reminds me today, when Karen was down here before, she said she was thinking of those days when we had the model airplane club, friends and family and everybody. Every Monday night was pizza at Wendy's house, and we used to try to help each other learn the skills of modeling. And one of the hardest things to pass on to people was how to buff out paint. And in those days, it was always dope, of course, dope butyrate, dope finishing. And we used to sand it with 1200 and buff it with compound by hand and never with a machine. And when I think of how easy it is to do it now, with the equipment that we have now and the materials we have now, and wow, it just couldn't be any easier. And I hope my videos have contributed a little bit to that anyway. Anyway, we're pretty much ready to see how this paint's going to buff out. Now, one of the things in taking off the masking tape, the most important thing is not to scratch the mirror, if possible. If possible. That's the biggest thing of all. Oh yeah, this piece of tape up here. Let's see if we can get this to come out in without a problem. Now I'll show a little trick that I use. Is I cut, just run the X-Acto knife along there, so that the paint is already cut, and it doesn't tend to make a rough edge. It'll just end real nice that way, hopefully. Boy, we got a lot of hopefullys here. What I'm hoping is that I'm going to be able to get that Suzuki. Well, we're running late on this project already. I want to get this buffing done today, but I'm already thinking, because I'm always thinking of like a chess game. What's the next project? Getting that rear wheel off the Suzuki and getting that started. And by the way, I got some stuff ordered to do that Suzuki wheel. I got some really cool little Dremel things that haven't come in from Amazon yet, so I will be sharing that, of course, and I hope that's going to go as well as I think it is. I'm trying to be real careful here because I don't want to pull up a big chunk of paint. There we go. All right. And that is a critical thing, not to get paint into that joint, or else every time you move that joint, that paint starts cracking and wrinkling. And of course I'll Windex that mirror down, but I think we got it. Well, one more mirror to go and we'll be done. And these mirrors are, as you can imagine, a labor of love, but boy, does that add a nice touch compared to that flat black thing with the Chinese writing up there. And see, to me, it's all about the little details. And details, look at the reflection in that paint. Details make the whole project. So as we work on this, we got one more part to go, and this day will be, I would think, very successful. And every part of this, I think, in a couple of days we've spent doing this, 2 or 3 days, we've made a beautiful little upgrade to a 43-year-old motorcycle that we are going to have. I always say it sounds depressing, until the day I die. There would never be a reason to sell this motorcycle. I've been thinking today about our friend in Kansas, Scott, who's doing, I think, his first restoration, and he sent me some pictures. I hope he's going to send some more. He's basically doing the trim on an old Suzuki GS. I think it's going to come out fine. He had some teething issues, but as we all do, I hope the videos are, well, I don't hope, I know they work. Anyway, here's the point I'm trying to make. Once you have this skill of knowing how to do this level of finishing, and it really is not really that difficult. This is not like being a chef in a restaurant or something where you have to know how to make a gefilte fish sandwich. There's really some basic, simple rules, and I remember it just like it was yesterday. My late friend who's passed on, George Venturini, used to tell me, whenever we'd have to mix some concrete, he was a mason, and he'd say, it's like mixing concrete. Once your father or your uncle or your boss shows you how to mix concrete, it's such a hard job to do that you learn how to do it efficiently very quickly. Now, I've learned how to paint things relatively efficiently, where a lot of people, maybe they take more time, or I've been able to do it in, I don't know, not record time, but a good amount of time. And that's the skill I always try to pass on. It's why I always try to show at least one of the parts in real time and try to encourage people to learn the skill of painting. And so many people over my lifetime have picked up the skill of painting with just the simplest of help. Showing them how to set a spray gun, showing them how to mix paint, showing them how to do what I'm doing right now, how to sand with 2000 grit paper, and then how to go get that $15 buffer and make it look like it's worth $1 million. And once you have that skill right there, you are on the road to having a lifetime of beautiful stuff. If you can dream it, you can have it. So the last thing today was I put a coat of Flitz on everything, and this was quite a productive day. Quite a day that I think this upgrade on the RD is going to be well worth the time we spent. And the quality of that finish, compared to what we had on there before, night and day. Anyway, this was a really good day. Anytime I can upgrade any of these little parts, make some kind of a little improvement in the overall look at a motorcycle, time well spent. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching. Now, as I end this video, because we're working on RD upgrades, I thought I'd share a couple of pictures that I have on the, actually these are from the old computer, and probably 5 or 6 years ago, when I had a different seat on the RD, different shocks, different mufflers, different handlebars. Not sure, maybe the same hand. Different mirrors, that's for sure. But you can see over the years, the point of sharing this is, these bikes, for me, they're evil twins. They evolve, they change. Every time I ride the bike, it seems like it's a different bike than I rode before. I kind of like that. I don't like flipping bikes, buying and selling bikes, but I love once you get a bike that you kind of like, put some money into it, put some time, do some upgrades. I just find that to be a better choice for me than, well, buying and selling and swapping and whatever. Anyway, I have a very short video at the end of this of the ride from this day. And I found this when we were converting stuff from the old computer to the new computer. We stumbled upon a lot of old stuff that I didn't realize I even had. And these are some of the pictures. And they're from about 5 years ago, I think. And not sure, but I still had the mufflers on the bike, so it had to be quite a while ago. But very interesting little video here up in the Face and Lakes area. You may enjoy the leaves changing color. You may enjoy the video, but you will always enjoy the sound of that two-stroke, the sound and the smell, and the excitement. Enjoy the video. Now, this is the kind of day, if you're a lover of RDs as I am, a lover of two-strokes, you just can't make this up. This started out to be really a cold day. I loaded up the two-stroke oil, loaded up the gas, and headed out by Face and Lakes here. And it's just turned out to be just an unbelievable day. Just unbelievable. They do a little pan around here for my friends and the people that don't live in this part of the country where the leaves change. Look at a house up on the hill there. Isn't that cool? Anyway, while we're not getting run over, there's a time of the day around here anyway that if you get up in this area around 11 o'clock, you can see we almost have no traffic at all. In fact, we have no traffic. But as I say it, we have traffic. So, but there's minimum traffic. And what's going to happen in about an hour from now, the school buses are going to have to deliver their kids. And then it's time that we just get out of here. And we're done with our burning up the two-stroke oil today. And boy, if you've never had the fun of riding an RD on a day like today, what a day this turned out to be. No, thanks for stopping. Oh, thank you. Nice guy, stopped to see. Had no idea we're just shooting video here, but the second one, actually the second one had stopped today. But this is a beautiful part of the country, and my friends in Florida especially, I know they'll enjoy seeing the lakes. And people all over the country. This is, they laugh about it. This probably is one of the nicest days of the year, and I'm in the middle of having what looks like it's going to be one of the nicest rides of the year. Now, of course, every once in a while when you go for a ride on a two-stroke, you don't come home. You come home in a tow truck. Well, we're gonna have some self-control today, but these twisty roads, they really do beckon. And if you've never ridden an RD in these twisty roads where there's not a lot of traffic and zero cops, wow. I remember some of the rides I had with Luciano when we had all the two-strokes going up the mountain. And what a day this is turning out to be. In the fall, actually Halloween is this week, the fall of 2000, look at how this turned out. You can't believe what a nice day this turned out to be. Just thought I'd share a minute or two of what's a wonderful day, a two-stroking specialist day. Burn up that two-stroke oil.